So in full transparency, there are some dangers associated with Kundalini energy and Kundalini activations, Kundalini yoga, and we're going to talk openly about those today. So with Kundalini activations first, the danger that is presented is one of physical form in body and one of mental form. And this is why I do have a waiver when I do Kundalini activations, which is that, like, this is what this does, this works, and this is why there are some dangers associated. They're not like dangers in the sense of like you're not going to be okay, but they're dangers in the sense of during an activation, if your body is moving and you're near a wall or a chair or, a sharp object, you flail and you could hurt yourself. Or you're moving into whatever, your body's kind of moving around and you have a sudden movement, maybe you get a muscle spasm, something like that. Those are physical risks. And then as far as like you do in person going somewhere, then there's always the liability of like anywhere you go to a yoga studio or to like an adventure zone, anything you go, there is that liability of you could get injured here, you could trip, you could like whatever you can do. Like there's dangers just walking outside every day, taking a shower, you could slip and fall and like hit your head, like anything there's a danger associated with. So of course with Kundalini there is some kind of danger associated with it. And then with the mental form, so this is a little trickier to get into, but we will. And so what this looks like is when people, okay, we get some wind today. When people do Kundalini or see other people work with Kundalini energy, and one of the stages of Kundalini is very emotional. It's like an emotional purging stage, if you will. And what that can look like is, so essentially what we're doing at that stage, let's back up a little bit, is we are, or at any stage within a Kundalini activation, we are going into your subconscious and we are just pulling up shit. So, like, shit hits the fan. And we are not necessarily going in for any specific thing like you might do in like a hypnotherapy session, but it is similar to that. And so within that, we're going into the subconscious and we are unlocking anything that is holding us back at the subconscious level from where we desire to move forward. We desire to express more freely, to be able to speak our mind, to, speak our truth. We desire to be more of ourselves. Well, there's something that's limiting us, something that we learned in there, something that maybe from our childhood, maybe from a relationship, from an experience at work or in school, anything like that. And that can be triggering. So this is essentially repressed trauma, and this can come up. And so when you go into Kundalini work, you do need to keep this in mind that things will come up. It's kind of like going to therapy a little bit. And yeah, these things come up and you have to deal with them. And it's not like, oh man, these things are going to come up and what am I going to do? It's like, no, they come up like as you're ready to deal with them. It usually doesn't come all at once, although it can feel like that sometimes. But you'll have a feeling, during an activation, you might just start crying. You're just like, like loud crying. Like, however, your body is processing something, and then when you come back, you're like, oh, what I was moving through when I was younger. My parents got divorced, and I felt really bad, and I never really dealt with it. And my parent left. They did this, whatever, and that can come up if that's something that you moved past but didn't necessarily address. It's like, oh, this happened to me. Okay, I'm going to choose to move forward, but I'm going to let myself sit with this. Like, those things can come up because sometimes we move past things that happen to us without really feeling like closure about them. And these are things that can come up. And this is why, as part of my waiver for Kundalini activations too, why it does say, like, if you have psychosis, or if you have like a severe mental disorder that you're being treated for, or that anything that you have that you feel like, oh, like, I don't handle these type of situations well, it doesn't mean that you can't do Kundalini activations, but it does mean that, like, hey, watch out, this is going to be very triggering for you, and we need to have a conversation about this before you go into an activation, and make sure that you are prepared for what can potentially come up. And so I have that in my waiver. If you are this situation, then it might not be right for you, or we might need additional support in order to help you through that. And so that's the emotional side. And the reason that this can be like dangerous is because in our society, we wake up, we go to work, we come home, we are with our family, we go to sleep, we wake up, we do it again, and we don't really evolve a whole lot once we enter the workforce. We go to school. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, bam, you're grown up. You go to college, maybe you work, and you retire and you die, and like, that's it. And for a lot of people, and that's it's an exaggeration. That is an exaggeration, I admit. But with Kundalini work, it's not like that. It's like, if you go in, like, one of my favorite movies that's like, oh, open this up, it's Alice in Wonderland. And so you go into that experience, it's like, oh, wait a minute. These things that I thought were real, this reality that I thought was my reality is no longer. And oh wait, there's this other reality that I before thought didn't exist. I thought that the people who were able to be creators and artists and writers and musicians and these, all of these people that I thought were like, oh, this is someone else. I'm this life, like, I'm a normal person. Those are not people that I could ever be. Like, I could never be like that. One example is this. And think, oh, wait a minute. I get to choose my own reality. I get to decide who I want to be. I get to decide, oh, wait, this is my reality. This is how I see the world. And I think that people who do these types of jobs, who are, like I mentioned, like writers, creators, artists, have a very open Kundalini channel. And they may not necessarily do Kundalini work or even know what it is, but their energy flow is open. And that's really that's really important here, is that Kundalini is one way to define this energy work, and it does have a distinct movement, that like serpent-like movement, and so it does have that, and it does have a very specific focus in how it moves through the chakras, and have Kundalini yoga and all of that. But ultimately it is just energy. And even like within chi, like within martial arts, it's very similar. Like, it's all just energy moving, and our creators, they have this energy. And so going back to this, like, well, why is it dangerous? The danger is that you are no longer a product of society. The danger is to the people who design the structures within our society, who want us to follow suit, who want us to see our society, our communities as the world. Well, when you do Kundalini work, and when you really open up your mind, you see that the world is so much larger than that. And there's so much beyond that we sometimes just say to people who have these ideas that are so out there, like, man, you're fucking nuts. And it's like, wait, no, actually, the belief that our society is so small, like that is our world, you're not crazy, but you're limited. You're limited to that way of thinking. And I'm sure that even right now, my way of thinking is limited because I'll continue to expand. So there's always a limit imposed on us. But what Kundalini energy teaches us to do is grow beyond that limit. And it's also that, like, there will always be more that you don't know than there is that you do know principle, because our world is ever evolving, and the things that don't exist yet, or let's put it this way, the things that exist now only exist because someone invented them, someone created them, someone decided that we are going to have electricity and water and gas and streets and supermarkets and malls, like everything. Those only exist because someone put them there and someone designed it and built it, and that is someone's structure that we live in. And when we really open up our mind, like Kundalini energy does for us, we see that, oh wait, where do I fit in, and what actually am I capable of? And we realize that we're capable of so much more than what we've ever believed we were capable of. And this is a danger to the structure of our society, because we realize, hey, wait, someone created this. What can I create? What can I do? And it's just this unraveling of like, oh, wait, I thought that was like true. Wait, there's more? Like, there's more than I realized that was happening? And even our thought patterns, we begin to see different habits that we have, and different patterns and programming that we have. And we begin to decide, do I want that to be true about me? Begin to decide, how do I want to live my life? And who do I choose to be? And we realize that who we are up until now has not necessarily been who we are. And here's where it begins to get a little bit like mind warp, is that we begin to realize that, wait a minute, someone told me that I was good at this thing, or that I wasn't good at this thing. Like an example that I had in my other video with like a math person. Like, you go to school, you go to math class, and you're like, I'm just not a math person. You will live your whole life, potentially, believing that, and then you don't follow that path. You believe, oh, well, everyone in my family, they go to school, they get a job, they work that job, they have a family, that's my life, that's what I do. You realize at some point, wait, that's a choice. That's a choice to do that. It's also a choice to strive for something else. And either one is perfectly valid, depending on what I want and what's available to me. And this just begins to come into so many different facets of our lives. We begin to realize like how we interact with people and different things that trigger us, and how we respond, and we realize that we can actually craft who we are. We can actually decide, oh, I don't feel good when I am talking to this person because they say things and they upset me. Well, we can change how we interact with that person. We can't change what other people do, but we can change how we perceive what is said. We can change, oh wait, what am I being triggered by? What's happening here? And we begin to see beyond the surface, beyond our conscious level, into some of our subconscious things. And this is again where during an activation, some of those triggers can come up, like some of those repressed traumas can come up, like might say, oh, I've been really afraid of speaking my mind, and I felt insecure about having a YouTube channel and doing these things that I want to do, and I don't know. And so when someone I talk to says, oh, what are you doing? Like, that's not a real job, that's whatever, you're dumb, you're, you know, whatever they say, then you change that relationship that you have with yourself. So that, sure, someone might say something and be like, oh, that stings, that stings a little bit. But it's no longer like, I don't want to interact with that person because I feel shitty. It changes to, oh, yeah, that's like a little prick. Like, that doesn't feel so great. But I know who I am. I know what's true for me. I know what I'm doing. I know what I stand for. I'm actually okay. I can take a little flick. I can take a little hit, and then I can be okay. And so I do want to touch on Kundalini yoga just like briefly here. And this is a different practice than activations. Activations, just like lying there, receiving, your facilitator does all the work. So Kundalini activations are like super easy for the, hello Win, for the receiver. And for yoga, yoga is more work. It's more of that masculine side, whereas the Kundalini activations are more the feminine side. And Kundalini yoga, like dangers that people say, are that it's like one of them. This is kind of funny. It's not like it's funny, but it's whatever. You'll see. And one of them, it's like hyperventilating. They say like a breath of fire, for instance. It's like they're like, oh man, it's dangerous because you're gonna hyperventilate. You're gonna like kill yourself by breathing too much. And it's like, no, actually, the practice here. Like, sure, you could do that if you're just like, I'm gonna go beyond, like, I'm just gonna keep going until I pass out. You could do that, I guess. But really, this is, I'm going to tune into what my body can handle right now. I'm gonna build up my capacity to breathe. I'm gonna build up my diaphragm muscles. I'm going to build up my capabilities physically. And then mentally, of course, that strengthens us as well. And then other practices within Kundalini yoga, just a lot of repetition. Again, just like normal risks with any exercise. That is, you can sustain an injury. Like karate, do that. That has risks, right? Go in, you can have some serious injuries there. You get like punched, you get broken rib, you get whatever. Kundalini yoga is not that risky because you're just working with yourself, but you still can have, muscle strain. You can have the dangers that people mention doing that. Like, I can't even talk about it with a straight face, but because ultimately, as long as you're working with like a teacher who has your best interests in mind, which a lot of them do, they're going to guide you into learning about your own body and your capabilities and building yourself up. And as long as you do that, as long as you tune into, okay, what can I handle at this moment? How much exercise? Like if you go to the gym and you're like, man, I lift all these weights, and then like and I don't have a spotter or whatever, I'm just gonna do it myself, and you like crash and it falls on you. It's like, yeah, that was going beyond what you're capable of at the moment. The goal within Kundalini yoga as an exercise is to strengthen your capacity to hold that Kundalini energy by strengthening your physical body. And then with that, you also have to strengthen your mind to be aware of where you can grow, and also it's just like they just like work together, your mind and your body, especially with exercise. Like, I can do this, I can push through an hour class. I might have to modify, I might have to, maybe I'm doing an ab exercise that is meant to be 2 minutes long or 3 minutes long, and I'm like, after 30 seconds I'm like, so you might need to put your hands under your lower back, do a modification. You might need to slow down. Maybe you're not like breath of fire the whole time. You're like, maybe you need to slow down, and it's like, and it's like that crawl, like I talked about in another video, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Sometimes I'm gonna like crawl, like army crawl, like dig my elbows into the ground and like, and I'm going so slowly and I'm going forward. And other times, get out of the sun while I'm at this. And then other times it's like, okay, I got this steady pace. Sometimes you might feel like, oh, I can run a little bit, and then you get tired. Well, the trick is not to go to a complete stop. Although sometimes, like, know your limitations. Sometimes you might need that break. But if you can just come back to that steady pace. That steady pace is always where you're going to find your optimal growth. Like within the zone of proximal development, like Vygotsky's, your education background at all. Zone of proximal development is where I am slightly uncomfortable. We stay within our comfort zone, we don't grow. We don't learn anything new. If we push really far beyond that, we just feel defeated, and we also don't learn anything, we don't progress. And we can even regress. If we start in our comfort zone and then we just push a little bit, say, okay, yeah, I can do this. This feels good. Okay, let me grow a little bit more. This feels okay. Let me grow a little bit more. Ooh, this feels like too much. Let me just shrink it down just a little bit. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna stay here for a little while. I'm gonna push a little bit more. Okay, this feels good. Okay, I'm gonna stay here for a while. This becomes a new comfort zone. You see how it's grown? So our comfort zone grows. And that's where it's like this infinite process of growing and expanding over our lifetimes. And with Kundalini energy, what this does is it can expedite this process. And that does come with discomfort. Like, there's a lot of discomfort. But it is like this zone of proximal development where you say, okay, okay, am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? I'm gonna stay here for a while. So once you open it, it's like, it's open. There's not really any going back. But you can stay there for a while and say, okay, I'm gonna stay here until I feel good again. I'm gonna open again. Okay. Whoa, what's this new world around me? Okay, I'm gonna stay here for a while. Or you might open and be like, ooh, okay, okay. Open a little bit, open a little bit. Oh no, I'm gonna stay here a while. Like, it's that same stretching, but what that energy does is it unblocks the flow of our natural energy, our natural life force. And within that, it strengthens our capacity to hold more. And within our physical body, in just how we express and how we think and how we are, and mentally as well. And then when we combine that with a physical practice like Kundalini yoga, we now have the tools to cope with some of these things that come up, because sometimes it is like just an emotional roller coaster in the beginning stages of Kundalini, and that's okay. What's important here is I would say, okay, like, I've opened this and now it's just open. It's open. How do I deal with it? That's where some of those like yoga practices can come in, and they're really helpful because you're like, oh man, I'm feeling really anxious. What can I do? Okay, let me work on my breathing. Let me learn how to cope with anxiety. Okay, I'm not feeling so calm. Like, let me practice. Okay, let me do meditation for a calm heart. Like, let me expand my capacity to hold this. Okay. And so you see how these are really intertwined. Kundalini activations and Kundalini yoga. So I definitely want to go into some of these topics in more depth individually. For this video, we're going to stop here. And in other videos, we'll go into some of these different areas so you can learn more about Kundalini energy, activations, yoga, and of course, if you have a question, let me know down below in the comments here or on the blog post, and or even just reach out to me on Instagram in the DMs, and I'll see you guys back here next time. Bye guys!